All right, so welcome into the show this morning. We're sitting down with Mr. David Clokey, and we're talking about a business you really need to know about. This one, probably not a lot of people know that it's here, but this is one of the best stores in Gadsden to me because of the breadth of selection, all the gear that they have, and all the product knowledge that goes with it. So, good morning. Welcome in.
Good morning. Thank you for being here.
So we're at Ski World this morning. So, how did you get started in the business? Is this something that grew out of a passion, or?
It really is. Ski World began in the early 80s, and we just realized there was nothing around North Alabama where you could get water skis and accessories. And really the closest shop was Birmingham, and outside of that it was Mobile. So there was a need, and we felt that and wanted to address it. So it's just something we love doing, and so we've been around for about 40 years.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, yeah, with having the Coosa River, Weiss Lake, Neely-Henry, Logan-Martin, even Guntersville. I knew a lot of people that went to Guntersville. I grew up personally on Weiss Lake, so spending a lot of time up there. You're right, there was no place for gear, and a lot of the stuff that we had was hand-me-down. I learned to ski on a pair of old Cypress Gardens, wooden skis, probably about that wide, something like that.
Right.
So then I forgot how we got a set of modern-ish skis that just a night and day world of difference. Learning to use those instead of the old wooden ones. So
Right. Well, my dad taught me to ski, my mom and dad, and I was about 6, and they had a pair of Jags skis that were made in Gadsden. They've still got the label on them.
Really?
We've got them mounted on the wall, and JAGS, Jags water skis, made right here in Gadsden. So that's the pair I learned on.
Really?
And they're still in excellent condition, but they were just wooden skis that were
you can refinish
made,
those
and
things.
so
and
you know,
shellac
back
'em.
then I think my mom and dad put an inner tube around me for flotation, just a tire inner tube. So
we did that too. My granddad worked at Goodyear, and one time he got a bunch of inner tubes that were truck tire inner tubes, and thought, hey, these are great because they're a little bit bigger than usual. You couldn't sit in the middle of those things. They were just that big. But it's one thing to hold a ski rope when you're on skis, but then if you try to do it in an inner tube, it doesn't work out too well. So we tied ropes around the tube itself and it just did not work out very well. But it was fun. We had fun trying it.
exactly. Well, my parents were skiing, well before when the time I was born. So they would ski on the Tennessee River at Guntersville, and so just from my earliest memories, our family was skiing. So it's just kind of a passion we've had and really enjoyed all these years.
And that's us too. I couldn't remember not having a boat. As we've gotten older, we would finally at the point that we don't have a boat anymore. But my great-grandparents had a place that was close to the lake, and when they put the lake in the 60s, then we were close enough to where we could leave the boat there, and it was maybe a half mile from a boat launch, something like that. So every weekend growing up, I think we were out there every weekend that it was warm and the lake was up. We were out there skiing, fishing, doing something, just spending time on the water. So.
Right.
I think a lot more people did it back in the day. I knew a lot of people that also water skied, and families had boats, and it was very common, but I don't see that as much anymore. And I think it's changed a little bit too. So we've had a lot of people come into the area and buy houses that are now on the lake. So when people would come in from another area and not be close to a lake, like if you came in from Metro Atlanta, really nobody in Metro Atlanta is on the lake unless you're up near Lake Allatoona in the far northern part, and the lake property up there is very expensive. So I've known several people that would sell their houses, and then when they move here, they can afford lakefront property or waterfront, riverfront property. And so now they're like, well, okay, I've got a boat dock. I can get a boat and learn how to water ski. So if nobody has done this before, what do you recommend in terms of gear or instruction or anything like that? How would just somebody that's never done it before, what would they need to do to get started?
Well, we recommend that someone start with water skis, even though the surfboards that are here behind us and the wakeboards that we have are very, very popular now. We recommend that people start with skiing. And we had a couple this last weekend that were here from Mobile, and we taught them to ski on 2. They learned to wakeboard that very same weekend. He learned to ski on 1 within 24 hours. But we like to start them on a pair of skis. So, that seems to be the best route for just getting the foundation of learning to ski and balance and that kind of thing. And then they can move on to whether it be surfing or riding a wakeboard. A lot of a lot of younger kids may even want to start with a knee board and start with that before skis. But if they don't, we've got skis for toddlers as young as 1 or 2 years old.
Yeah, because I see the set here that I learned on a similar set, but what we did was found a set of wooden skis, and my dad put 2 stainless steel eye bolts that he drilled into them and made a chain to kind of hold them together. And then as I got steadier and steadier, we took those loose. But that's a much better setup than what I learned on. And with knee boards, I remember those being around, and we borrowed one from a friend of ours, and I could not get up on it to save my life. I wanted to because I'd seen all the videos of everybody just having fun, all the neat tricks you could do, and I said, I want to do that, but I could never quite get up on them. So,
right.
But skiing, I actually became a pretty good skier. I never learned to slalom ski, but I could with 2 skis, I could do pretty good.
Well, I think we pulled our oldest son on the knee board when he was 12 months old. So
wow.
we have a picture of that. And so a knee board,
you strap onto
yeah,
them.
Well, we just set him on top so he wouldn't be strapped in case he turned over. But we set him on top and just pulled him along about 5 miles an hour. And the great thing about the knee boards, they were extremely popular, like in the 70s and 80s. And
yes, they were.
Even through the 90s. And then they died off, but now they're popular again. We just sold a knee board about 15 minutes ago.
Wow.
So the knee boards have made kind of a comeback, and they're great for people of all ages.
Neat. And I know one thing that's changed probably since I was heavy into it are the wake surfboards. That's something I was kind of unfamiliar with, and I guess in my mind I still pictured holding a ski rope, but you actually don't hold a rope with a wake surfboard.
Right. You start with about a 15-foot rope, and you get up behind the boat, and then you get out on the wave, and then you just pitch the rope back in the boat and actually can just surf. And these became popular in it seems like about 2006 or 2008 is when they were first brought into the water ski industry, and they are extremely popular. This in the last few years has been the single most popular aspect of the sport. It's passed up wakeboarding, water skiing, so they've been extremely popular.
So wakeboards where you still hold a rope, right? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Right. On a wakeboard, you hold a 65-foot rope, and you basically do different types of tricks, jumps, and that kind of thing over the wake.
But you're standing up on a wakeboard, right?
Right, you're standing up.
Couldn't remember, so.
So wakeboarding is easy for young kids also. I mean, we have kids that are about 6, 8 years old that usually don't have a lot of trouble getting up on a wakeboard.
Okay. It's kind of like snowboarding on the water.
Exactly.
And not a lot of ski resorts. We do have one ski resort in Alabama, but
right.
a little bit easier chance to get practice, get the mechanics down, but it's fun in itself. So,
right.
Because I know they do competitions with pretty much any form of water sports, so
right.
That's something that you can work into.
Mm-hmm. And the placement of your feet is almost identical to a snowboard.
Right.
So very, very similar. It feels quite a bit different when you're on the water as opposed to the snow, but the wakeboards in this area, like the Etowah County area, probably this year have been more popular than the surfboards.
Okay.
So
kind of a resurgence.
Yeah, even though the surfboards passed them in the last 2 years, it seems like this year the wakeboards are coming back, maybe a little bit more popular. The surf boat requires a really large wake, and you've got to get away from boat houses and that kind of thing to use a surf boat. So
because nobody wants a wake if you're fishing close to shore or anything like that.
Yeah, so the surfs are just require a certain place that you would be, where a wakeboard boat is a little easier to find and a little more popular.
I guess that's kind of my next question is, does it require a certain kind of board? Because I know we actually skied behind a pontoon boat growing up. We had a couple of ski boats, and I know the wake that comes off of them. I wanted that bigger wake to be able to jump over, but I know on pontoon boats they don't, just because they don't draft as much, mm-hmm. They don't put off as much of a wake. So different type of boat, and I know, do you have to plane it different, or do you have to adjust the engine different?
You typically have ballast tanks that you fill to add weight, and some of those tanks can weigh up to about 3,000 pounds. But what you can do, just for the average boater, he can take one of these surfboards, and they can put like 4 people on one side of the boat, and also with a full tank of gas, that adds a bit of weight.
Okay.
And so with maybe putting 4 people on one side of the boat, you can get enough wave where you can surf on one of these without going and spending $150,000 on a wake surf boat.
Okay, so they do make them specific, but then you've got another way, the ski boat that the families had forever, you can still utilize that.
When
for
these
the
were
lake
first
surf.
introduced, I took one home from the shop, and my boys were still in high school, and we learned we learned to surf, or taught them just with a regular ski boat.
Okay.
So, like I said, we just put about 4 people on one side of the boat, made enough wave for them to surf.
Okay, awesome. And I know you've got all the gear for anybody that's wanting to get started too. So it doesn't take a lot of gear, but there's very specific gear that you do have to have when you want to get started. So what would kind of that starter kit of water sports be? Whether it's skiing or whether it's wake surfing, anything like that, what would you say is the starter kit?
So usually the starter kit will be someone buying a pair of the trainer skis for their child.
Okay.
Or if they're an adult and they're wanting to start, just buying a pair of combos. And they'll typically buy vests for each member of their family. We have vests from infant all the way to triple extra large. So there's about 14 different sizes of vests that we carry. So they'll buy a vest for everyone in their family. Typically they'll buy a pair of skis or 2 pair of skis, maybe one for their children, the child style skis, and then the adult skis.
Because the flotation's different.
Right, just get the flotation, and then they'll buy a ski rope. And so that's kind of the entry package typically.
Okay, so not a lot of equipment to get started. What would you say, kind of a put-together starter kit, just a ballpark of a price?
They could buy a pair of skis and a nice slalom rope or ski rope and a couple of vests, for probably about $400.
Oh, okay, so that's not much to get started anyway.
No, not at all.
Okay, and I know you carry very good brands that I knew growing up. They've been in the industry for quite a while. So, what all are some of the brands, and what do you like about them?
Okay, well, we carry Conley, we carry Liquid Force, and we also have HO Hyperlight. And the Conley brand has been around. I think Pat Conley started that company like around 1970. So they're a name that everybody recognizes in the water sports industry. And HO Hyperlight, that's a brand that Herb O'Brien started. He's been around the industry for over 50 years, so that's a very popular brand. And then Liquid Force is a newer company, but they add quite a bit in the surf industry and the wakeboards also. So that's a real popular brand that people like also. But those 3 cover the gamut of everything that you would need, from water skis to knee boards, wakeboards, surfs. Even the foils now that are really popular. The foil has only been around a couple of years, but it's extremely popular. It's probably the most exciting thing that we have in the store right now for me personally.
I remember watching back in the 90s one of those future shows of here's all the future tech coming on, and they were showing these off. So how does this work?
Well, you actually start on that just like you would a surfboard.
Okay.
In that same position, you're laying on your back and you place your feet on the board, and the boat slowly takes off, so you don't even ride that board but 10 miles an hour. That's the nice thing about it. So it's just like 10 miles an hour, just about the same speed you would ride in surfing. So if you do take a fall, it's just like jumping in a pool. I mean, there's no
It's not like hitting concrete.
You're going to hit the water and go, oh, that really hurt. It's just a really soft fall.
Right.
But the nice thing is you can ride that at 10 miles an hour, so the boat's burning very little fuel, and it's just a blast to learn. And actually you can, once you've learned that a bit, you can drop the rope and just kind of pump that and just ride it continually even without the boat.
Because I've seen people get on one of those at a dock and then just start pumping it and go kind of wherever they want to. So it's kind of like a bicycle or a skateboard for the water. Truly is, but it will generate its own propulsion.
Right. So it's really the most exciting thing in here. At least in my opinion.
Yeah.
I enjoy the water skiing still. I enjoy riding a slalom ski. I enjoy riding a wakeboard. I enjoy surfing. Everything that's in here, I actually enjoy riding to this day. But the air chair and the foil are extremely, popular and far and top of the list for me right now.
All right, so you got to tell us about the air chair.
The air chair is very similar to the foil, but it actually has a seat on it and you strap in.
Okay, so the speeds are a little higher.
The speeds are a little higher. You ride the air chair about 20 or 22 miles an hour.
Okay. Yeah, I was impressed growing up because we finally got a boat with a speedometer on it. So the first one we had didn't. You were just kind of, you filled your way through it. The second one, as I got older, we actually had one that did have a speedometer. So when I learned to actually pull skiers up, how to get people up out of the water, work the motor and all that kind of stuff, then I could feel it, because that's how I'd learned to do it, was by feeling. Then I would look down at the speedometer and see it feels a lot faster than what we were actually going. I think we pulled maybe 20 miles an hour or something like that. And then I saw a competition, and they were putting the speeds up as to how fast they were pulling the skiers, 65, 70 miles an hour in some cases for some of the competitions. I was, oh, good grief. Our boat topped out at 35.
Well, the great thing about most of these products is, like when I was younger, probably 12 years old, I actually would ride my trick skis behind a 9.9 horsepower John boat.
Wow.
Didn't have to, but we would choose to do that sometimes. So a lot of these products in here, you're riding 10 or 20 miles an hour, so you don't have to have a big expensive boat.
Right.
You can ride these with a boat that'll give you, 10 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour. For skiing, we typically train people at about 17 or 18 miles an hour when they're learning. And then, they might advance. The top skiing speed on a slalom for a slalom course would be 36.
Okay.
So anyway, the average skier is going to ski about 28. And like I said, on these surfs, you're going to go about 10 or 11. On the foil, about 10. On the wakeboards, about 20. So everything in here doesn't require like a lot of power.
And it's all a different experience. That's what I like about it. So, nice hot summer day, I might want to go a little bit faster, get the breeze in my hair and all that kind of stuff,
Right.
and cool off a little bit. But then something that's a little more relaxing, or slower speed, lower impact, all of that kind of stuff. There's a great breadth of water sports that's available. Just depends on what you enjoy more. Like I tried to do the knee boards. I couldn't quite get up on them. Once or twice they were fun, but I just really enjoyed just skiing.
Right. You could get up on the knee board, you just need help. Most of these products in here, the average person that really enjoys being on the water can do. They just may not have the training. And we try to go over with each customer exactly what's required and needed so they can enjoy whatever that might be, whether it's a ski or a knee board or a wakeboard. We try to give them instruction while they're in the store so they can enjoy it and make their learning experience a lot easier.
And that's the difference, because most of the time, if somebody says, if you watch an internet video and you go, okay, that's called wakeboarding, I want to learn how to do that. So you start looking online and you find a wakeboard, you order, and it shows up at the house. You have a product in your hand. It could be a great one, but you don't have that instruction that you really need. That's the difference in buying online versus buying local a lot of times, is that you've got the expertise and the instruction to show somebody how to use it, because the instruction matters. Because you're right, with the knee board, not a lot of instruction came with it. I just kind of had to figure out how to get up on it. There's a technique, and these are pre-internet days. You didn't just watch a video on how to do this. So having expertise, I would have probably had a better time had somebody show me, somebody that was experienced and knew how to do it. I would have had a much better time with it.
Right. Well, the great thing about this shop is I think we're the only pro water sports shop left in the state. There's a lot of marinas that sell all this equipment, but as far as a water ski, water sports specialty store, I don't think there's another one left. We have customers that have come here in the last year or two from, we regularly have people come from Birmingham, Huntsville. We had one customer come from Knoxville. So specific to all these products, we're about the only one left around that's just designed just for this.
Well, and I knew there weren't that many before, or you would go to one of the warehouse type stores that sold gear, and same thing, if you go to Academy or somewhere like that to try to buy golfing equipment, nobody there can show you how to golf, and their equipment has dwindled down. Used to, they had a pretty decent selection of stuff, not that I'm a good golfer or anything, but they had a decent selection of equipment that would carry you kind of from beginner into when you figure things out and get better. This, you cover the gamut from absolute beginner to professional, just all in one shop. So that's neat to see. And you're right, I don't think there's anything else like this in the state.
Right. We have slalom skis, for example, that if a customer wants a nice used ski, we have used slaloms in stock. We have slaloms that are new that begin in the 400, 450 range, and then all the way up to 2,000.
Wow.
So it depends on what level the slalom skier might want.
What are some of the differences in between beginner and more advanced gear?
Well, the gear, like for example on the combos, those skis are made in a mold where the materials are injected into a mold. And so, whereas the slaloms, the high-end slaloms are handmade, and they're made with certain types of material, graphite, Kevlar, other composite materials that they're using now, and all that's a handmade process.
Wow. Okay. I'd always wondered because you see the price tag, and some people are just that way where they want to buy the most expensive thing to be the best, but that might not be the best for an absolute beginner.
They're going to be a lot lighter. The newer high-end slaloms, for example, are going to be a whole lot lighter than a set that's made in a mold, where,
Right.
where the liquid's injected and it expands and makes the ski. They're extremely light on the high-end ski, so the ski itself weighs very little. The bindings probably is where most of the weight is.
Okay. Okay. Well, that makes sense then.
And the same thing, even most of these surfboards are extremely light. The more expensive ones are a little bit lighter, but the same thing goes for that. Same thing on most of the wakeboards.
You just have more controllability.
Right. The wakeboards are fairly light. The bindings are probably weigh every bit as much as the board, if not a little bit more.
Okay. All right. Well, why don't you tell people where you are and how to get in touch with you and the hours that you're open?
Okay. We're located on Rainbow Drive, right next door to Sonic. We're in the building with Clokey Realty. So we're open 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, and by appointment on Saturday.
Okay. So if you're out on the
reach us.
river and need something, then
Right. We have people call from time to time that have driven from Weiss Lake or Guntersville, and they'll call and say, "Can you meet us on a Saturday?" And we try our best to do that.
Awesome. That's good to hear. Well, I appreciate you sitting down with me today and telling me everything that's in the store and what all you do, and tell me about your passion. That's what I want to hear. So,
Well, thank you so much. We appreciate it. We love it, and we're just trying to push the sport for this area.
awesome. Well, thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.